make your own decisions? Can you keep your dignity intact? Can you be your own master? So this basically, in just one single number, you give away the story of India right now. Then, third claim, and this claim perfectly counters the claims of growth and development. 10 years, Mr. Modi could not guarantee high GDP growth. It is about 5.7% for consecutive 9 years, from 2014 to 2023. And you must have also heard about 2 crore jobs annually. Have you heard about that? Yeah. Has any of you got one of those 2 crore jobs? So that also he miserably failed to give annual 2 crore jobs. He's not been able to even double farmers' incomes. Farmers are again now planning to come back on the streets. In fact, the decisions he takes are so undemocratic that farmers were on the streets for more than a year when he took this undemocratic decision of implementing farm laws without taking farmers into confidence, without any consultations ever. Number 5, Mr. Narendra Modi in the parliament, he said, Congress ki naakami ka smarak banega Manrega, which means in English, Manrega will continue as a living monument to Congress's failure. So which means if he thinks that it will become a monument of the outgoing party, that he does not believe in this scheme, right? And he should have scrapped this scheme. But on the contrary, the demand and spending on Manrega has only increased in the last 10 years of Mr. Modi. So these are the 5 things I felt were important for you to know when there are economic claims being made, especially for students sitting here. Whenever there are people who support Mr. Modi and his party. Only yesterday when I was coming from Delhi to Calicut in the flight, there was a gentleman, and a very gentle gentleman, and he was a businessman also. He says, oh look, I don't agree with the social policies of Mr. Modi, but 2 things you will have to admit. And I may not be a supporter or voter of the BJP, but still I will have to admit. And you will have to confess to me that you are convinced. 2 things. One, he says that India has become a Vishwa Guru already under Mr. Modi. And second, he says the tremendous economic progress that he's been able to deliver to the people of the country. So whenever you meet such people, you have these 5 points to tell them that no, what you're saying is just media clips and nothing more than that. Now to social and political questions that Mr. Modi be asked. It's been not just 1 week or 1 month, several months since Manipur is in crisis. There is a literal civil war going on in one part of the country under a prime minister who says that he has won the world, that even the Western countries are at his feet, but he cannot take control and is not able to manage even the security situation in one part of his country. And leave that aside for a moment, not even controlling, he cannot say M for Manipur. He has not gone there even once. So it is Rahul Gandhi who's gone there not just once but twice, even a couple of days ago. He was in Manipur, he was listening to the women. The man is not in power, but he's trying. He's trying to at least listen to people's voices, like journalists do for that matter. Like I would go and listen to people's voices, even if I'm not in a position of power. But I would get to know what's happening. So even this much, and so much for the double-engine Sarkar, the double-engine government, that in Manipur and in the center, both is the BJP government. And they say you elect us not just at the center, but also in states, because what you get is double profit, double wheel, double-engine Sarkar. So even despite the double-engine Sarkar, there are more than 200 people who died. There are over 1,000 people who are injured, and there are several thousand people who are homeless, who need to be rehabilitated. Many hundreds of people are still, living in relief camps. Are you aware of that? How bad the situation is in Manipur, but nobody will be asking him a question because Narendra Modi has become a god. And gods are there only to be worshipped, not to be asked questions. Now the question that is again and again, the only question I would say that should have been asked of him, that was asked not on a national platform, but twice on international platforms, the Muslim question. The complicated relationship Mr. Modi has with the Muslims of India. So twice it happened, one in UK and one in US. One in UK when it happened, he of course couldn't reply. One in US, when the question came to him that what is he doing about the state of minorities in India, he said India is a mother of democracy. At least a dozen times he said democracy. He repeated a dozen times democracy. And he said India is a mother of democracy. We do not discriminate we do not do any discrimination based on religion, caste, creed, language, gender. That's it. So 2 questions he so far addressed, both were on Muslim question. But if you look at India right now and where we are, the state of minorities, I would say the ugly reality of 2024 is that minorities are under relentless attack. And when media and people use terms like communal violence, I don't agree with that. This is not communal violence. Communal violence happens when there are 2 equal parties colliding with each other because they don't like each other. And they use violence as a means to show their hatred. What's happening in India right now is nothing less than state persecution of Indian Muslims. So this is no communal violence. This is outright state persecution. Bulldozer Raj. Why I say it's state persecution? Only 2 days ago, in Madhya Pradesh, in the city of Ujjain, 150 days ago, there was a religious procession going on. It was passing through a Muslim locality. And one of the people from a local Hindu organization, it accused a couple of Muslims, 3 Muslims, that when the yatra, the procession was passing by that area, they spat on the procession. A case was registered against them. 3 people were arrested. 2 of them were minors. Minors went to jail, and their house was bulldozed within 24 hours of filing an FIR. This happened 5 months ago. After 5 long months, there were 3 people who went to jail. 2 people were released after 2 months, and now the 3rd person, who's the only adult, he was released after 151 days because the police could not prove their case in the court. And the court gave the final, the last man also the bail. Now his house is demolished, and this person spent 151 days in jail. And this is not the only incident that happened. And one of the most peculiar thing that happened, drummers with themselves, when they reached the venue, when they were demolishing the house of this person where at least 12 people lived, 3 families used to live. It was a 3-story building. So 3 families used to live, 3 brothers who used to live there with their families, and they also used to run a small shop in the same building. So municipal officials, they took drummers with them and they played bhakti song, religious song, Govinda Govinda. People were dancing, beating the drums while this house was being demolished. This is the state of affairs in India right now, and that's why I say this is no communal violence. This is no Hindus and Muslims fighting with each other. This is the state with its full official government machinery attacking the Muslims. Now, coming to the Vishnu Guru image, Mr. Modi thinks, and I think when you go to the ground, you actually feel that he's been able to sell this story very well of him being the Vishnu Guru or him making India the Vishnu Guru. When G20 was happening, just days before G20, there was a riot to took place, which is just an hour drive from New Delhi. A mosque was demolished, the imam was killed, and there were clear public calls for social economic boycott of Muslims. And this was happening when all international global delegates were there in New Delhi. This is how a global leader, a Vishnu Guru looks like. People talk about political representation. Now you have a member of parliament called Danish Ali from BSP. Danish Ali was abused, called a pimp, a terrorist, an outcast by his fellow parliamentarian in the premise of the parliament. So no space is a safe space for India's Muslim. You may be a small-time vendor, you may be a cart puller, you may be a small shopkeeper, you may be a journalist like me, or you may even be a parliamentarian. You can still be called a terrorist, you may still be called an outcast, you may still be called a pimp, and other names which are uncivilized and I cannot pronounce here. So nobody is safe if you belong to a particular identity, and no place is a safe place for India's Muslims. To give you a small example, someone like me with a public identity, I cannot go to a public park. I cannot go to a public gym. I cannot go and watch films. I cannot announce, if I was coming to Kerala, I did announce this on my social media because I feel it's in a way a safe space for me, or maybe I would like to. So I announced that I was coming to Kerala. But mostly, I am not confident that I can say this on social media. I don't know who is there sitting, in the crowd who hates me for asking for accountability from the government. Or people like me are also branded as enemies of the state, enemies of India, enemies also of the Hindus. So it's very difficult. So that's why I'm saying it's difficult for someone like me to go and, let's say, watch a film like Kashmir Files or the Kerala Story. So it's not just the television where you see day in and day out Muslims being demonized, Muslims being projected as the enemies, as the other, but even in popular cinema, you have films, utterly Islamophobic films like the Kashmir Files, you have the Kerala Story, where they have been exempted from tax. Government offices have given them leave to watch films, these particular two films, and I cannot go with my face and with my identity, having this public profile, to watch a film like Kashmir Files or Kerala Story. Because I know very well the kind of people who would be interested in watching those films. And this is not just about me. I am not a visible Muslim. I may be a person with a public profile, but I am not a visible Muslim. Just think about people who have beard and skull cap, women who wear hijab. You don't really have to even ask them what their identity is. And imagine the kind of people who, after watching Kashmir Files and after watching the Kerala Story, their thoughts about their Muslim neighbors or the people who are watching films with them. So one space after the other, they're turning every single space into an unsafe space for India's Muslims. I feel there are three important markers which clearly define India's transition from a secular democracy to a Hindu first nation. After a few minutes, I'll also show small clips of the videos, or I would say the video testimonies I have collected to show to you that how India, in some parts at least, in some pockets at least, is already living like a Hindu Rashtra. It's already experiencing a Hindu Rashtra. So you don't have to really do the hard work of making changes in the constitution or declare one fine day at 8 p.m. in the night that, okay, me, XYZ, declaring India from tomorrow onwards become a Hindu Rashtra. So in just a couple of minutes, I'll show you a few videos which I hope will convince you that in some parts, some pockets of India at least, people are experiencing what a Hindu Rashtra would be like. So three important markers in my view, which are defining India's transition from a secular liberal democracy to an illiberal Hindutva state or a Hindutva station. One is Citizenship Amendment Act. Second is reading down of Article 370 from Jammu and Kashmir, and third is Temple in Ayodhya. These three things I feel have changed country and brought country to a point where I don't think there is any way that we feel it can be reversed or it can go back to where we started from. I'm not asking you to get disappointed, but I'm saying there is so much damage that has been done to India that's very difficult. A couple of incidents you must have heard about. One student in Muzaffarnagar in Uttar Pradesh, where the teacher identified a Muslim student who was barely 7 or 8, and she asked his fellow classmates to slap him, take turns and slap him one after the other. And she made sure that they were slapping him because of who he was. And later she said she wanted to punish him for not finishing his homework or something like that. But then she made sure that also basically Hindu children are being radicalized, are being trained from the age of 6, 7 and 8 to hate fellow Muslims. When they grow up, when you train them at the age of 7, 8 and 9, that these are the people who should be target of your hate, and these are the people who are the other, who are the enemies. So they are being radicalized to a point. So it's not just, the victims are not just the Muslims. I would say equal victims are also those innocent Hindu children or children from other identities who are being trained and raised to hate the other communities, to hate their fellow classmates. Now imagine the state of mind they will live in. Do you think they will grow up to be good human beings? They will grow up to be kind, compassionate, intelligent human beings when they are being instilled with so much of hate and division and kind of discriminatory practices that they witness at such a young age. And second incident, I'll tell you why I'm saying now, is that you do not really need an RSS or a VHP or a Bajrang Dal to come after people of a certain identity. Now there is this Railway Protection Force constable who killed the 3 Muslims in a train. And he killed them because they were Muslims, not because he had any conflict with them or he did not know who they were. He literally went many compartments to look for people who looked like Muslims. He identified them. He went to 3 bogies at least and identified them and killed them. So people who are supposed to protect you are so full of hatred that they are killing you. Teachers who are supposed to teach you, they are so full of hate that they are training you, raising you, teaching you not to be good human beings, but to be hateful, bigoted individuals who will grow up and become part of this whole poisonous society. So these 2 incidents, I feel, they symbolize the culmination of 10 years of the politics of hatred, division, and what Hindutva has done to India. Now my last point, and I want to focus on press freedom. When it comes to press freedom, it's just been a day. There was a Twitter handle called Hindutva Watch. Hindutva Watch has been withheld on the instructions of Government of India. And this Twitter handle was documenting the cases of communal violence and discrimination. The handle owner has not been given any clarification, any chance to put forward his point of view, any reasons why his handle has been withheld. So this is the kind of police state that we are living in. I feel Narendra Modi's rule in India has been a story of capture, control and throttling of the media. You know they have been using police cases on people like me, on organizations, The Wire. They have literally completely destroyed a news organization called the News Click. They've filed anti-terror cases on journalists working with News Click. You know a gentleman called Siddiq Kapil, your very own from Kerala, who had to spend more than 2 years in jail for a story he never wrote, for assignment he could never cover. So counterterrorism laws are being applied on journalists. Financial regulations being used to intimidate journalists. And so when Muslims are facing this whole, open state persecution and Hindu supremacists are tearing India apart, I feel the new foot soldiers are not the members of the BJP or the RSS or the BHP or many other organizations. I don't know, some of them are also active in Kerala. The new and the most effective foot soldiers of Hindutva are the mainstream Hindi journalists. They are the ones who are actively working to build a Hindu Rashtra. So on one hand, you have journalists who are facing financial restrictions, who are facing counter-terrorism cases on them, who are facing jail term, threats of rape and murder to journalists like me. On the other hand, there are journalists who are called mainstream journalists, who have reduced themselves and their work to just being foot soldiers of Hindutva. That's the story. And what they try to do? What they try to do is that they have created a whole narrative and a complex in the mind of ordinary Hindus. And this complex is of cultural loss. They tell you that these Muslims, whether the modern Muslims of 2024 or Babur, Aurangzeb, who happened a few hundred years ago, they are there to take away your culture, your civilization, your religion, your land, your women, your money, your employment,